Alrighty, let's see here. Is it recording? Alright, it is. Atlantean Vampire here for what'll be an interesting video. Might be a little windy, so meh. I got in an argument with someone that said to me, psychic vampirism, astral vampirism. What a repugnant concept, And it's one thing, if you unironically believe in such repugnant beliefs online, right? If you talk about online, don't show your face. Because if you showed your face, you'd get lynched. You would be on a watch list. You would, people would not talk to you. And all of that's true, unfortunately. Maybe not the watch list part, because I got the First Amendment on my side. Not even for the free speech, just the religion part. Because none of anything that I'm going to say in this video is illegal. Might make you uncomfy, but it's not illegal, right? But I bet you wouldn't talk about half the stuff you talk about with your face. All right, so where do I begin? I wanted to talk about everything involving astral vampirism, from the social part of it to the spiritual part of it, to everything, like bad, the good, the ugly, the beautiful, in my opinion, the cosmology of vampirism, the alchemical science of vampirism, and there will be. I'll try to keep the political bias to a minimum, but no promises, and I'll be explaining a lot of things from my theological perspective, so there will be bias in that regard as to how I make sense of some of this, and just talk about it as if it's fact when it's technically a matter of faith. But to me, it's more about acknowledgement. Nothing of my vampirism would I consider faith, as much as I don't know. I guess I have faith that I breathe air. I guess I have faith that the sun is out. I have faith that I'm wearing glasses. Maybe I'm not. But yeah. So where do I begin? Because I was like kind of walking back and forth, kind of monologuing to myself, making this video before I'd make this video, and it just naturally rolled off the tongue. And now that I'm trying to think, well, how do I make this presentable? I'm like overthinking it a little bit. This is what it is. But yeah, so I've had people say to me, all sorts of people say to me what they think psychic vampirism is. And I'm going to avoid using the term psychic vampire, just because even though it's probably the most accurate, it can become convoluted because of Anton LaVey and the fact that, yes, he did coin it first. And now it is technically a term, actual medical term for narcissism, So even though we use the term psychic vampirism for what is essentially an astral practice, we can't exactly get offended when people use the term psychic vampire. I've tried to reclaim it. A lot of people have tried to reclaim it. There's not much to reclaim. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, that would have been great if we coined that first. Yeah, psychic vampire, whether we like it or not, has become synonymous with emotional vampire. And I don't believe emotional vampires exist. Purely in an occult sense. Maybe psychologically, if you just want to, degrade someone that likes emotional abuse, which I've never understood that. What a privilege it is to be alive, and why are you going to make someone else's life needlessly miserable for no goddamn reason. I don't understand that. But then there are people that know the difference between what I'm going to talk about and, emotional abuse. And they know it, but for one reason or another, either because they genuinely believe it or because they just hate both and they want to lump them together, right? Um, you know, everyone hates pedophiles, everyone hates cannibals. So, what if we made it so, we double hate, both things, right? Everyone hates mosquitoes. Everyone hates cancer. Well, let's just call mosquitoes cancer, and you know, go so far as to say that they are quite literally the same thing. Some people hate torrential downpour, and some people hate forest fires. Let's just insult the torrential downpour and say that when it's storming out, they're also burning down the forest. I mean, well, whatever. Yeah. So, how do I put this? I had someone, not only say to me, "You wouldn't talk about this in public." Actually, I do all the time, and it's put my life in danger. I've had a gun put to my face. I've been stabbed. I have. It's not really safe if people actually know what you are, what you legitimately are. It can put you in some bad situations, and it's a good thing that our existence is so covered in layers of irony and pop culture and convolution and obscurity that we are protected by a shroud of tomfoolery, and it gives us the ultimate advantage, right? So to say that we're prosecuted, I mean, I don't think that we should be, but it's really easy to avoid it, typically. But there are some situations where you can't, and it's just, it'll happen. It'll happen to you. More often than not, I'm the fool that put myself in this goddamn situation. But it's like there are real people suffering out there. People that can lose their job over their sexuality or whatever it is, or people that'll be killed for their religion, whatever. And it's like you've never had any of your fucked up, evil occult practice ever interfere with your regular domestic life. And I'm like, actually, I lost my job, a job I really liked. It was underpaying. It was actually at Pet Supply Plus. It was like $12 an hour, and then got $13 an hour. But fuck these people. I remember, I had a coworker. I can't remember his name, and we were just kind of standing around. We like talking about like all sorts of like socio-political, economic subjects and animals and things like that. And it was a really good job. I liked petting the dogs and cats and the reptiles. But man, I you know I, it's funny because when people do acknowledge your existence, they acknowledge it in all the wrong ways. And sometimes it's just fun to troll, right? And again, I can't truly complain given that I know the dire circumstances we face and I had all the advantage. But sometimes it's funny because, when you're an astral vampire, you can essentially run around naked in the street and do all sorts of dumb shit, figuratively, in front of people, and it's like they don't even see you, right? So most of the time they're oblivious to your existence, right? And I loved how there have been so many times where I've hinted at my true nature to people, and it's funny. It just became kind of like an inside joke between me, myself, and I. So just when you're bored, it's a funny way to kind of pass the time, and I offered him $5. I said, I am a part of the most persecuted minority on earth. We consist of every race, every religion, every political background, from far right, far left, authoritarian, anarchist, vegan, carnivore, whatever. Um, you know, the basis of our existence is not off of a faith in something greater, but off of an acknowledgement of ourselves. And its core, at the end of the day, revolves around a type of nutrition, a type of food. So it's a dietary, spiritual minority. And how do I put this? We use something from pop culture and mythology, and what it does as a metaphor for what we do spiritually. And none of what we do is illegal. All of what we do is protected by the First Amendment. Planes, trains, and plantains. Anyways, yeah, and people, all people hate us. Christians hate us, pagans hate us, Satanists, depending, hate us. Atheists hate us, and a lot of atheists think we're dangerous. Those that actually know, that are in the know. This is the kind of thing that can get us killed. We have been persecuted. We have been hunted down all throughout Eastern Europe, and I'd argue that more of us have been killed than women burned falsely in the witch burnings. We've been, hunted from any corner of the earth for almost over 10,000 years, and arguably a lot of what is depicted of said metaphor creature is often a metaphor for us, as we've always existed, and people have known of us and have hinted at us throughout fiction often. And people have a hyperfixation on accusing us of pedophilia, amongst other fetishes, or to say that we're role-playing or that we're mentally ill and a danger to society. What are we? And he couldn't guess. And it was funny watching the days go past, and he was just like ripping his hair out like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, trying to pinpoint the conspiracies. And the cheat used ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was like psychic vampirism, and he was just like, no, that doesn't seem right. No, like all those specific details, it has to be something else. It has to be something else. As I said, it's not a fetish in any way, and no matter what people think it is, in terms of fetish, it has nothing to do with sexuality. Unless, I didn't say this, but unless it's like the Lilith branch of it, which is retarded. But yeah, it is very shrouded in sexuality, unfortunately. Wow, just gross. But yeah, he was like, vampirism, and I'm like, yeah. I did this with another coworker who I gave him hundreds of hints. This other one, she just figured it out, and I'm like, how? I gave them both $5. But this kid in specific, who I thought was my friend, who I really liked, he was a cool dude. He doesn't really believe in anything, but he loves studying all sorts of things from the occult, religion, and things like that. And I have kind of a policy of never talking about the more grittier details of vampirism as a way of life, as a spirituality, as a way of being, as a state of being, unless especially to the cattle, to the elemental vampire. I don't tend to explain these types of things to these types of people unless they're specifically interested and seem like they're showing signs of good faith, right? So I tell him all the nitty-gritty details. and then that spreads at the workplace. Next thing you know, I'm fired, and I have no idea why. And my boss is like, well, it's because you made some people uncomfortable. And I'm like, can't think of anything. And then I find out later from an associate that also got fired there illegally. I guess I was fired illegally too, given that it was off of religion. But basically, what I found out was that they thought, some of them thought I was an actual vampire. Well, I am a vampire at least. And the notion of how I feed, what I feed on, and how all that works made them extremely uncomfortable, right? Because even if you approach the subject on a civil level, like when it comes to the occult, I ask them if I could feed on them. I'll pay them money. They say no, and I'm like, okay, I move on. But now they spiral into a weird type of paranoia where it's like, oh no, I turned him down. He's going to feed on my energy. And, they freak out, and then they stub their toe. He cursed me, or he drained me. I didn't have enough energy to not stub my toe. And it's like, I always found that interesting when someone's honest and straightforward. I think that at least in my opinion, in my twisted, demented head, that means I have enough respect for you and your being to an acknowledgement of your humanity and your own use of energy to yeah. So it's like, if I'm honest with you with my intent, why would I just get all angry and go haha, and I feel like it's the ones that feed on you without telling you that I could easily get away with it, that are more what you would have to worry about, but you wouldn't, because you wouldn't have known of any of this unless I brought it up. Which again, it's might be better just to feed on them without them knowing. It's just so strange. But when you genuinely respect people that use their energy, you don't want to make enemies, because if you feed on them, they know, if they're psychically aware, they know what you did, and then that gives them more fuel to the fire to hate on us and further drag our names through the mud. So it's typically the unawakened that I feed on, because they're not using their energy. I tried the whole ethical vampirism thing from that cretin Michelle Bellinger. We'll get to that piece of shit in a little bit. And Fang Fag Sebastian, the whole lot. And the cancer upon this earth that is the vampire subculture, which makes no sense. But yeah. And then, so on the other end, some of the people at Pet Supply thought, he is actually like a sick, sinister spiritual entity, and I don't feel safe, right? Because they know that these kind of things are real, and they're thinking, this might be human, but this isn't human. And then the other ones thought, if someone's mentally ill enough to believe that their only way to spiritually survive, to have a soul, is to drain a substance that most people aren't even aware they have, right? That they don't have, because none of this is real. But if they're mentally ill enough to believe that they are a predator, that they are, that they have to do this, and they form a whole way of life around it, they're clearly not mentally there, and I don't want someone in the building who unironically thinks this of themselves, because I think they might be a danger to me, my, the people under my management, and, just a liability, a potential security risk, and this could end badly, right? This person is insane. And I remember hearing from this associate of mine that the manager was like, no, he's crazy. He is absolutely mentally ill, unsafe to be around. And the fact that he believes any of this is, just like, I don't want him on the establishment. I think he might hurt somebody, which is the typical reaction, so I wasn't surprised. But thankfully, my friend, who does know what I am, that is not what I am, is one of those very rare people, and I've never fed on them, even though they don't use their energy, and they never will. I'm like, this is a great human being. Yeah. So they were like, well, that's illegal, right? You basically fired someone over their faith. that's religious discrimination. That literally breaks your policy guidelines. You know, that's an HR issue. You know, and then when I realized that, you know, they tried to retaliate against me for some things. I kind of reinforced that, and I was like, you know, I have more legal leverage than you do. I can take you to court. I can make a lot of money off of your public humiliation. So do with that what you will. And they backed down because they knew they were legally in the wrong. Morally, they're probably thinking, ha ha ha, we're saints. But yeah, no. It's one of those things where it's like you can't trust people. People, you know, no matter how much goodwill you show people, unless they are fellow vampires, they will typically, more than not, you know, 4 and 5 will find a way to stab you in the back and try to make your existence as miserable as possible. So I get the need for obscurity and secrecy, which undermines the whole point of this video, because I'm going to be going into depth on some of my own vampiric struggles and, you know, other people I've known, and again, all of these things, and revealing secrets that will further probably put me at odds with the vampire community. But I'd like to be the first person on YouTube to actually make a video that is actually, you know, functionally, you know, honest. You know, because there's so much misinformation. The only accurate videos on the subject of vampirism are by people that are not psychic, that are not astral vampires. They're, you know, it's always sympathetic vampires that produce the most accurate stuff, from Michael W. Ford to how do I put it? D.H. Thorne. You know, even that crackhead, what was his name? E.A. Coetting did some good stuff on the subject. But it's always people that are not of us that, ironically enough, post the most accurate things. For them, not us. So I'll be getting into differences between, and I've, you know, in my struggle to kind of find better terminology, I created the term Varmir, right? Because that is original, and no one's came up with it, especially the way I spelled it. So I can, given that I'm the first person to come up with it, I can kind of just be like, this is what this means. Unless there's like some obscure romance book with like a long-haired dude riding a horse that's like was written 80 years ago by some unknown author, where she was like, I got a really good idea. And someone's going to go, well, no, that actually refers to a mythical, magical, you know, long-haired, hyper-masculine, makeup-covered centaur. And that's what you're referring to yourself as. But, guilty. Let's go with, when I'm referring to astral vampires, that is such a vague term. So I'll be referring to Varmir, which is essentially what psychic vampires mean by when they call themselves psychic vampires, and not like accusations of narcissism. So it's essentially just my equivalent of being like, well, goddamn, Anton LaVey took the best term. Now I guess we have to make our own. So, but it's also a protest against the actual psychic vampire community, because if you look up what psychic vampirism is, you will see on the Wikipedia, you know, that it refers to the actual thing. You know, people that feed on, that believe that they need to spiritually feed on other people's life force in the form of chi, prana, vital energy, or sometimes in a sanguinarian way through drinking literal blood in order to have an afterlife and things like that. You know, but then it also says, it also means, it also is a type of goth subculture, and it also is for people that are just simply fans of like Twilight and the Vampire Diaries, and you're like, well, hold on, these things have nothing to do with an occult practice. And then it goes into, it's also a subclass of BDSM, and I'm like, oh, okay, hey now. But it's interesting because when I meet people that are like me, that are of my kind, my ilk, and they're like, yeah, here's a little group, and I'll find like there may be like two or three of us out of maybe the 200 people involved, and the rest are just really into like raunchy sex and dressing goth, and I'm like, what is, like what? It's like having a way of life centered around pescatarianism, but for somehow the only pescatarian establishments, like it's just become like a mythical rule set in stone. If you're a pescatarian in this obscure example, you can only eat pescatarian food in a strip mall that contains three businesses: a pescatarian restaurant, but also a Spencer's, right? Also a Spencer's and a brothel. So you're only allowed to eat your fish salad if you're in a brothel, Spencer's, or a Hot Topic. That's 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 how you be a pescatarian. And then meanwhile, the guy eating his fish salad's like, what the fuck does eating flounder and cabbage have to do with this guy clapping cheeks and this other person wearing really long thigh high socks that make him look like Wednesday from the Addams Family? What does this have to do with me trying to sit down and eat a goddamn meal? What does other people being mentally ill have to do with my need to not fade off into the void and dissolve and wither into nothingness? It's so weird because we'll get to that, but that's why I created Varmir. It's kind of a protest to say, hey, if you're legitimately a spiritual vampire, you're disconnected from source, and you need to feed on life force, and you don't want to be involved with debauchery, and it's like I'll go onto Discord servers, right? There's what is it, V Nation or the V community or something like that, and then there's another one, I can't remember their name, that is dedicated to psychic vampirism or sanguinary practice, and as soon as I go in there, they're like, this is LGBT. No, it's plain. This is LGBT friendly, trans inclusive, no hatred, no Nazis, no whatever. And I'm like, but wait, what is the Nazis in like people that, are mentally ill and don't want to go to a therapist because they were molested, and instead, give themselves hormones that make them die of a heart attack in their 40s and lop off their genitals? What does that have to do with my spiritual practice? Like legitimately, like maybe I'm retarded, but like, what is someone else's like wanting to take it up the ass have to do with me being a spiritual predator and having a spiritually carnivorous diet? Like, what does this actually have to do with anything? And it's weird because there are donors, people that have good spiritual energy that seem to be sympathetic towards our kind, and they'll go on there and they'll post photos of their hands and be like, you can feed on me, right? And I'm like, okay, this is good, right? And I go into the DMs of this one girl. She's a virgin. She's 18. Very good quality of energy. I could smell her through the screen. Just really amazing. It's just like I could sit down and eat a meal, and yeah, I'm like, all right, could you send me a photo of your wrist? And she sends me a photo of her breasts, and I'm like, I drop my phone. I'm like stunned. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm just like, what the fuck? Why? She's like, you can spiritually extend your tendril and bite here, and I'm like, no, I want your wrist. What the fuck does your breast have to do with any of this, right? And it's like, it just seemed more sensual and intimate, and it's like, ugh. I'll let them pass. But yeah, no, I just didn't understand. It made no sense to me. I was like, so what? And it's like, you know, another one I'll be talking to, right? I blocked that one that sent me her breast. I'm like, I don't understand this. This is confusing to me. Um, you know, I mean, they're nice, but what the fuck? You know, now I don't want to eat. It's, ugh. But you know, there's this one. She sends me a photo of her wrist, and she's like, "Oh, so you're gonna feed on me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like you're gonna sink your spiritual things into my soft, rosy flesh, and it felt like she was role playing, and I'm like, I mean, yeah. It's like, oh, it's so hot, and I'm like, how is that hot? You know, I had never understood that element of it because when it's like walking into a bagel shop and being like, yeah, I'd like a bagel with cream cheese, and they're like, oh, that'll be $7 for this bagel. You want cream cheese in the hole? And I'm like, no, I'd like you to like spread. Oh, you want me to spread the cream cheese? And it's like, I work a fucking 9 to 5 and just want to eat breakfast. What the fuck is this? I'm in a bagel shop. Why are you like, oh, the cream cheese? It's great when you lick it through the hole. Imagine going into like a Pizza Hut and people are eating pizza and they're like, oh, fuck. You know, and you're just like imagine going into a Burger King and someone's like, you know, and I'm like, you know, here I am working a job a while back where me and my partner are unloading stock from a truck, and you know, I smell this burger. It smells great. Like my mouth was watering. And he's like, "Oh my god, that smells like a fucking sexy burger," and I'm like, "What? Like what's sexy about a burger, right?" And I learned kind of recently when I really looked into it that there are people that just subconsciously think of food and sex as the same thing, and I don't understand it. I was asking a sanguinarian friend of mine who does drink literal blood from people, typically women that donate it, and he's like, yeah, man, I don't understand it myself. It's kind of one of the reasons I'm a little detached from the community, right? But the only way I can actually drink someone's blood willingly is if they think that it's romantic, right? And you know, she'll set up candles, burn incense, and get like little, you know, lancets, and just let me like, but I have to like kiss her wrist, and it always made me uncomfy. And I'm like, yeah, no, that'd make me uncomfy. And I'm like, you know, you just be better off like fucking killing a chicken and drinking out of it like a straw, drinking out of its neck like a straw. Like I'd rather do that. And he's like, yeah, but the human blood is better quality. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but also like, if I could make $200-$300 a night having sex with a 40-year-old woman as a 24-year-old, have, you know, laying pipe to a cougar, right? I'd rather make fucking a nickel an hour shoveling horse shit, you know, because like I could absolutely never. I mean, I don't. You know, it's just it's really it's really fucking upsetting. Apparently, the people that do believe in this, that let us feed on them, only do it because there is like some kind of like, for them, something sexual. They get off on it, and I'm like, how? Do you have like no survival instincts? Imagine a horse moaning because like blood flies like drink from it. You know, imagine someone that gets a mosquito bite and they're just like, fuck, I just gooned. You know, I don't. Imagine a lamprey eating a fish, and then that fish just line of row, just, you know, it bites onto a salmon and then spawn. It's fucking sickening. Never understand. I don't want to understand it. it's concerning. I'm just, you know, and people call me a pedophile and are like, you should be locked up and put on a registry. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're gonna put me on the sex offender registry, could you like also put, the guy that's like fucking like, ready to fucking like, soak his panties over a burger? Could you like throw him in with me? Like I'm more concerned about that. I'm like, you know, and I remember posting on Reddit, my location. I was trying to be very vague. I was like, hey, I'm here at this business at this time every now and then. Let's arrange a meetup. If you are, and I was listing my